I am glad that this has caught steam because before everybody, who was one of the first people to tell you it was a terrible idea to pardon Derek Chauvin? This guy. Everybody else was quiet. Everybody else was like, oh, well, Ben Shapiro, this, that, and the other thing. Jason Whitlock was the first out of the gate saying this was a stupid idea. I got to give him credit. I was one of the few after him to say, dumb idea, don't do it. It's a terrible, terrible thing. And then that's gained momentum. And it's coming out that the Daily Wire did this because they are desperate to reacquire subscribers. They are losing subscribers hand over foot because people are realizing that the Daily Wire is a crap organization, that all they've done is sap money from millennials promising to change the culture. And all they've done is sell overpriced chocolate and razor and shaving blades. The only thing that's good out of the Daily Wire, and y'all know I'm not a huge fan of Matt Walsh. I think he's fine. I don't think he gets, he's a much bigger personality than me. I don't have a terrible problem with him. I don't think he's as great, whatever. But he has done the only thing of worthwhile out of the Daily Wire has been his documentaries. Everything else has been a nothing burger. The movies they try to make, like Jeremy Boring, he's a failed movie producer. That's why he started the Daily Wire, so he could do the conservative alternative. And every movie they've made has been complete and utter garbage, unless it's Matt Walsh's documentaries. I have a feeling within the next year, and you're going to hear this first here on Rickcast, so this is why you subscribe to this channel, Matt Walsh will leave the Daily Wire within a year and start his own documentary, because that's where his own documentary film company, because that's where his heart lies, and that's what he's good at. He is really good at the documentaries and putting those together. Eventually he won't need the Daily Wire backing. And I think he would do really well to leave the Daily Wire and to create his own production company and do his documentaries. He can do those for the rest of his life and be actually more impactful than what he does at the Daily Wire. Now, I get it. He's still there because they pay him well. And I began the show telling you I would be happy to take sponsorships to get paid. So I understand why he's still there, but I think eventually he's going to see that the Daily Wire is a sinking ship and he's going to bail out. What's Michael Knowles going to do? Michael Knowles can start a podcast, write books, and be happy the rest of his life because that's his lane. He'd be really good at writing books, having like that upscale Catholic aesthetic that he's very good at. And then he can just do his show and he could probably be bigger. Honestly, I know this might not be a popular statement to my Catholic brothers and sisters, but I think he would actually be bigger than Matt Fradd if he went off on his own. Because I think he'd be much better in that role than what Matt Fradd is doing. Am I a huge fan of Matt Fradd? Not really. Doesn't mean I don't like what he's doing, but he is who he is. But I think the Daily Wire will be a shell of itself within a year. And I think this is going to speed that up because they went all in on this idea of pardoning Derek Chauvin. And saying like, we want Derek Chauvin pardoned until everybody went, why on God's green earth would you pardon him at the federal level? He still has a state sentence. Candace Owens actually did the documentary, Burning Minnesota, or whatever the case may be, where she came out and she said, pardoning Derek Chauvin at the federal level is a stupid idea because you know what would happen to him? I said this the other day because I'm just repeating what she said. They would take him out of the federal jail. He's here in Texas at a minimum security jail, and he's under federal protection. They had to move him out of Minnesota, and they moved him to another place, and then they eventually moved him to Texas. You get rid of that federal sentence, he goes right back to Minnesota, and he's under the control of Tampon Tim and all those guys. It would essentially be a death sentence to do that. And it would be a loss for, I already talked about this. There's reasons. You're going to hear this from this conservative influencer, Rob Smith, who is the definition of a grifter, by the way. He's just repeating stuff you've heard me say. It would cause racial division. It would give the Democrats something to run on, and it would be a loss for Trump that we get bogged down in. But if you want to hear those points again from somebody who's apparently a better conservative than I am, take a listen.
For the Trump administration, for this country, for race relations, for anybody else, it is absolutely destructive. It makes no sense. And so for me, when I first saw this, generally conversations that happen come from the ground up. Usually there's some sort of murmuring under, and then it kind of like bubbles up, and then it becomes a national conversation. This seems to be a very top-down conversation.
And Rob waited until he saw which way the wind was blowing, and now he's come out with his opinion, unlike people like me who don't care which way the wind is blowing. And I told you last week this was a stupid idea.
That comes from somebody with an enormous amount of influence. This is nothing that anybody was talking about or thinking about. So it really makes me question, why is this conversation happening right now? It makes me question.
It's happening because the Daily Wire has lost its supposed conservative credentials, and they're struggling to get their audience back.
Why did Ben Shapiro want to start this conversation right now? Who does this benefit? Doesn't benefit Trump, doesn't benefit America, doesn't benefit race relations. It doesn't benefit anything. And the last point I'll make on it is this. There are very few people that can actually really speak to in depth what was going on in that trial, how how George Floyd actually died, et cetera, et cetera. There's probably 5 people that have, spent the bulk of their day on a podcast set every single day, like Ben Shapiro, like maybe 2 or 3 other people that can really talk to you in depth about this.
That's false. I mean, Shapiro has a law degree, but his lens was it was colored or filtered or slanted. That's the word, slanted, because the tweets we showed you when the story came up, he was like, George Floyd killed Chauvin killed George Floyd. He deserves everything he gets. So Rob, because Rob's, he's a smart grifter, he's not going to throw Ben under the bus because there's always money.
So then they're positioning themselves to say, no, listen to me. I'm the one who really knows about this. So what? Trump's agenda is supposed to be derailed. Where we're at as a country right now is supposed to be derailed because these leftists and these Democrats are looking for a reason to have another race war. That is what they love. So why this conversation is happening right now, I have no idea.
You're not for it at all?
No.
Patrick, don't get me started on Patrick.
That
guy's pathetic. I can't stand him. I cannot stand him.
Happening right now, I have no idea.
You're not for it at all?
No, I am not.
Oh, well, it's interesting. The black man isn't for it. Like, Patrick Bet-David, why don't you be a bigger racist? I mean, that passes for conservative intellectualism. Oh, the black gay man doesn't think it's a good idea. How interesting. Like he doesn't have his own agency, this guy. Yeah. Anyway, so Trump was asked about the Derek Chauvin pardon today. And this is what he had to say about it.
Pardoning Derek Chauvin?
No, I haven't even heard about it. No.
Nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna help little Ben Shapiro in his failing little outfit. Not gonna help him at all. Why would I help him? And I think it's great. And that's really it on this story. Everybody else, yeah. Well, Patrick Bet-David started off in a pyramid scheme. That's how he made his money. He did it in a pyramid scheme, and then he rebranded himself some kind of financial genius. He's not. And he is, he's as big of a snake as any of them. So it's one of these things. Yes, that's right. Trump was like, I heard the Rick cast, and the Rick cast said, don't do it. And I said, Rick, love your show. Great idea. I wish. Dude, if Trump shouted me out once, I would be good. Just one time. Rick cast, great show. Everybody watch it. But whether he should be pardoned or not, Mark, is it's kind of like 2 questions. Should he be pardoned? Absolutely, because it was a sham trial. But the fact is, he's got 2 sentences. He's going to still have to suffer the state sentence. And whether we wanted to or not is irrelevant because it won't do anything. It'll actually make the situation worse by pardoning him. But of course, this is a desperation move to try and get some relevancy again for Shapiro to reestablish himself as one of the leading voices. And because right now, people, when he speaks outside of his little Daily Wire audience, everybody just trolls him. They just troll him. They're like, he's like, oh yeah, we should totally do this. And everybody's like, dude, shut up. You were anti-Trump. Now you're pro-Trump. You campaigned against him. Now you're like, oh, Trump should do it. And if I was Trump, I'd be like, Ben, I'm not listening to you because you're not important. You're an insignificant bug, Ben. Nobody likes you. And so this move, but this desperation move is really a story about the Daily Wire more than Derek Chauvin. Derek Chauvin's being used as a pawn once again Instead of the left using him as a pawn, now the right is using him as a pawn. He's being used once again for clout. He's being used once again to push an agenda. And that agenda is the Daily Wire trying to get more subscribers back because they were stupid. They let Beth Cooper go, which was absolutely mind-bogglingly. Like, when you have a show that's making millions and millions of views, you pay that person. It was a money deal. She just wanted more money. And they're like, no, we're not going to pay the person that has the biggest cultural impact and draws in an audience that we're all desperate for. Every conservative podcast wants female listeners. And I have my fair share, actually, if you look at my statistics. But the fact of the matter is, they're desperate. This is a desperation heave, and it was a bad move on their part. And they're going to suffer the consequences within the next year. I think Walsh will be gone. I think Knowles will be gone. And it is what it is. Who's Beth Cooper? She was a Gen Z conservative that was very big in that young female sector. She had a show called The Comment Section with Brett Cooper on the Daily Wire. And she did very, very well. And so she wanted a little bit more money. The Daily Wire said no. She left. Hundreds of people just left with her. And now the Daily Wire is suffering because of it. All right. So